Hi, guys. Just like that, 5 weeks are down. I felt like the season just started still in
Hmm.
my head. It's crazy how fast like the NFL season's gone by.
Hmm.
Corstian, any quick observations you have noticed so far?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's felt like it's been going real quick too. Like week 5 is crazy already to be in, but then like it doesn't feel like we've fully separated the good from the bad. With like because we're seeing a lot of teams at like 2-3 and 3-2, which is like, naturally that kind of goes towards the average. But as we get further along, we'll see kind of teams teams going better stretches, bad weak stretches. Um, it's like right now, it's like you look at the 49ers who are 2-3, and you're like, that's still like middle of the pack technically. But it's week 5, they have a losing record, and you're like, is it time to panic? But you literally have like a whole nother like 12 games or so to play a football, and obviously end of the season, uh, being 2-3 or 3-2 is not going to be like the biggest stressor, I guess, at least from the start of the season.
Yeah, they could easily go 10-2 the rest of the stretch, and we're not even talking about
Mm-hmm.
like how they started out. So a lot
Yeah.
of football to be left. It's not on our topics, but I'm really impressed with what I've seen in Caleb Williams. Like
Mm-hmm.
this last game was the first time we've seen him push the ball down the field as
Mm-hmm.
much, and I think Waldron's found some concepts that work really well, and it helps to have Keenan Allen back.
Mm-hmm.
Really love what I see from here. Like Jaden Daniels continues to kill it. I'm waiting to see him go up against a legitimate defense. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I think who are they? They're not facing Green Bay, are they?
I'm looking up
They
their schedule right now.
um
Oh, the Ravens.
the Ravens. I would keep an eye on that game
Mm-hmm.
because I think that might be the first game where we see him struggle
Mm-hmm.
and we see the rookie moments out of it. I think up to this point he has had it fairly easy. The Brown, don't be fooled by the Browns. The Browns have been reeling. Bengals have been reeling on defense. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I'm taking a wait and see approach with him, but he's had a phenomenal series. Drake May starting
Mm-hmm.
for the first time. I can't like we had nothing to talk about for like this episode, but I can't wait to see what he does.
Yeah.
Because he's had some time to sit. Ideally, you
Mm-hmm.
would like it to be later than when he's starting now, but like excited to see like what he puts on tape. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we can continue without talking about really shocking news, in my opinion. Robert Saleh fired from the Jets. I did not see this coming at all. It was just kind of like a what? Wait, why? Like there were no tea leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, just going into the situation, and he's put up some phenomenal defenses.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what did you make of this? Like, were you as surprised as I was that this happened?
I wouldn't say. Like a mid-season firing. Not even mid-season, like an early-ish season firing. I think is always surprising. Even if you're calling for a coach to be fired, there's always a little bit of a shock factor behind it. But I think this is kind of like adding to the testament of like defensive minded head coaches don't have a very successful track record in the league. Obviously, there are outliers there, but like in his case, I felt like he was the type of defensive coach that was like he wanted the offense to complement his defense. When that really isn't how like you find success in the league nowadays. Um, and so it seemed like he put all his eggs in the defensive basket because, like, the Jets' defense is elite. There's no questioning that. You have a lot of pieces. You've developed really well on defense. You've it's had a lot of stars. You allow very little points per game on that defensive side. But I felt like he kind of neglected the offense and just kind of like he was like, the defense will be good. Hopefully, the offense is fine. But then you look at like the Texans, whose coaching is also defensive minded, but it's like the offense is probably the strength of the team. He built the team around the offense, and he still works on. So like he's worked on that balance rather than like you see here with the Jets. That's why the firing happened. You see with the Broncos with Vic Fangio, where he created a strong defense. He had good coaching system set up on the defensive side, but then he neglected the offense and was hoping that the offense would just kind of complement his defense, which, leads to unsuccessful seasons, which leads to firings. And so that's kind of my thought behind of his firing here. I don't know how well the interim head coach will be, just given the current situation and the fact that Nathaniel Hackett's still there. I know most Jets fans would rather see Hackett gone before Saleh, but I know they're starting to get tired of Saleh.
I think Saleh was actually contemplating making that move himself. And just to throw this like crazy information, and I'm not trying to take a political stance here at all. I just think it's inaccurate as far as like what actually happened. There's articles like citing reasons why like he was fired. Like Aaron Rodgers had to deny rumors. Fox News put out that like he was wearing the Lebanese flag, like played in London, and that played a role in his firing. And Woody Johnson came out and said, "We're not where we need to be performance wise as a team," and that's why he fired him. And I would take him at his word when he said that because they're not. They should have won games. Like I'd argue they should have won the Minnesota game because that was like in their hands. Like Rodgers lost in that game with the turnovers he usually doesn't make. And like there are other opportunities where they had to win games this year. I think it's a little earlier premature just based on the information we got. But yeah, that was kind of shocking to see it happen because he's had put such successful like defenses in place. I guess the one thing I'm looking at this and seeing is like, okay, with Jeff Ulbrich, like you still have defensive continuity, but it's like, okay, what's going to change from the offensive end? How do you get better production? Because you have talent there, you have talented players there, but how do you develop a scheme that you can get consistent production off of as a system? You have the Aaron Rodgers offenses where like it's heavy on back shoulder, it's heavy on quick screens or like reacting to the defense. It's very like based on what the defense does. And that's probably not helpful given that a lot of quarterbacks, like the top ones in the league, do that. But like Rodgers, you know it's gonna be the back shoulder fades, it's gonna be the quick slants, quick shots, like ways to get the ball out quick. But how do you actually build around? Because once teams start to game plan for that, like Andrew Van Ginkel, his pick six came off of the fact that if you show Aaron Rodgers a look, he has this hot route and it's mostly the slant. And Andrew Van Ginkel played off of that, like that tendency. So the tendencies are there, and teams on the defensive end are taking advantage of it. How do you build the system around Aaron Rodgers where he doesn't have to do as much?
Yeah,
that's going to be on Hackett.
Yeah, and Hackett is just like proven not to be a successful play caller. Like he doesn't even have like he isn't even the play caller for the rest of the season. At least for now, they pulled someone else up from their team to be the play caller for the offense, and that's just kind of like how bad Nathaniel Hackett is. Yeah, but then kind of going back to like Robert Saleh stuff, I think another issue too was just like the amount of penalties that was happening with the team. And like I'm looking at the penalties per game for teams, and like the Jets are in 26th place, being like of the worst, like 32 being the worst team. They're 26th, so they're what, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're like top 7 in penalties per game, which is not a good look for them. And then he really hasn't ever improved the team's, I think, penalties throughout, because like this season they're averaging 7.8 penalties a game. Last season they did 9.7, 8.0, 10.5 penalties per game. So the last 4 seasons, their penalties per game has been pretty awful. He hasn't done anything really to improve the discipline on the field, which I think was a huge factor leading toward. It was one of the things that I think was building up towards his firing. And then did you also see the statistic how through week 5 this year and last year, the Jets offense has scored the same amount of points?
That's wild. I did not see that.
So
just
with Aaron Rodgers is scoring pretty much, their offense is just about as efficient as it was with Zach Wilson and whatever other mix of quarterbacks they had last year.
I think that's coaching. I think that's coaching because like Aaron Rodgers can pull, like, especially with his game is based on cadence and whatnot. The last thing you want is to have penalties on the offensive end.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm not part of it maybe to deal with like Rodgers, but like that's stuff he would drill with his team. And that's like getting lined up right, like not like holding and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
That's on coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Like ultimately Hack is the overseer of that, given the where Saleh's role is.
Mm-hmm.
That's why.
Yeah.
I think like another nugget. I was watching the London broadcast. They're actually talking about like how Salah's actually going into like the quarterback rooms and like the offensive rooms. And I'm like, that's genius. Why
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't you do that as a defensive coach? Like you could offer
Mm-hmm.
so much as like, what would you do if you saw an offense line up in this formation or you saw this
Mm-hmm.
motion? Like, how would you
Mm-hmm.
scheme around that? How would you like? What are you trying to do in like your responsibilities in cover three that's different than a standard cover three?
Mm-hmm.
Because you put your own spin on it. Like those kind of things, like will help a guy like Rodgers or like quarterbacks that are under the wing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what made me shocked more than anything was that like another thing that this could be is like an owner who's making snap judgment decisions and not having patience to see this full process in. After all, this is Rodgers' like first 5 games basically with the team after
Mm-hmm.
tearing his Achilles. Like you cannot
Mm-hmm.
expect them to like come out of the gate firing. Like look at the Bengals right now; they're 1-4,
Mm-hmm.
and they're perfectly fine. They're keeping things in house. Like I have some questions about coaching, but I love Lou Anarumo. Like I trust him to improve like the defensive end
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. Like I just think with the Jets is like they're trying to do too much with the talent they have instead of
Mm-hmm.
just letting them try to build chemistry and then evaluate what's going on. I think it was a little bit too early for this move, personally.
Yeah. But then also, I think another piece is just like Robert Sala's lack of accountability in like post game press conferences, where like you look at last season.
Or even the offseason with Hassan Reddick. That like his mishandling with that, I think that's not a great look, man. That wasn't a great
Yeah.
look.
Yeah, and so I just feel like he at first I was a fan of him, but I feel like over time it seems like I mean, obviously I don't know the locker room, but like it seems like he may have lost the locker room, just kind of budding, I guess, dislike of him maybe over time with like pretty much all their losses last season, if you looked at like the press conferences, it was a lot of like blaming other people why they lost, but then like on wins, he'd be all happy, kind of taking the credit for the wins. And so obviously, when you got a head coach that blames the players for the losses but takes the credit for the wins, like that can't be good for locker room, like just overall health. And I think that could have been another factor amongst just the different ones that I've laid out for his firing, because like if like because I was checking out like the Jets subreddit, and it's like whenever they're losing, whenever they lost a game or whatever, uh like his like they're just like his eyes look dead, like he doesn't look like he cares. It looks like he does not want to take any accountability for the loss, and like has no plans on like fixing anything. And so like Jets fans were like tired of his antics regardless of how well his defense may be performing, just because the penalty issue, the scoring issue, the lack of accountability issue. It's like all these different things can't make up for, or the good defense can't make up for all these like 4 or 5 different issues that he has on other sides of the coaching spectrum.
Yeah, I mean it's fair.
Mm-hmm.
100% fair. I think it's a nuanced issue where
Mm-hmm.
they just need a veteran coach. Like imagine if Bill Belichick comes in
Yeah.
and coaches his team with that defense. Jeez, like I have no questions there.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, so we have 5 games in
Mm-hmm.
and a broader understanding as a result of where these teams stand. What are teams that like from week 1 onward that like you feel has like climbed the most in these power rankings where they are at the top?
Yeah, well, I think the big ones, like week 1, because I mean, I think there's some games where we think it may be just a fluke or whatnot, but um, I feel like some people had the panic button on with the Texans after week 1, with some of their struggles, but obviously since then they've done pretty well. So I think that's one team that's been good. And then I think, well, they're not the top of the power rankings, at least I'm looking at the NFL.com power rankings. I'd say the Falcons and the Broncos and I guess the Vikings because they're number one on this rankings. But the Falcons and Broncos have surprised me with like how well they've done. I think especially just like seeing how week one turned out for both teams. And now the Falcons are at 12, moving up 7 points from last week. And then the Broncos are 14, moving up 6 points from last week.
Yeah, I'm looking at the NFL.com ones. For me, I gotta say, oh wait, no, this is week 5.
Oh.
I'm on the wrong week myself.
Oh.
But for me, I think the obvious one is the Vikings. Like, how can you not have the Vikings number one? Like after like the narrow wins they've had, I'm a little concerned with their offense, like against the Jets. But we've seen their offense play really, really well. So even special teams been brilliant. Kansas City finding ways to move the ball. Like I think I've had them pegged like even after 2 Super Bowls, I get it. I feel like I had them pegged down 2 steps just because you have like a bunch of rookie receivers coming in, new receivers coming in that you didn't know, and then like you're trying out 2 new tackles, so it's like, okay, how's that gonna work? And then you lose Pacheco, and they're still able to find wins. So like, I feel like they've improved. Houston, I agree with. Baltimore, I think looks better than the AFC Championship game. Baltimore, and that's a lot to say. Buffalo looks better than what people thought like week 1. Credit them for making it competitive against the Texans after a Ravens game that went far out of hand. I think they still can compete. So those are the list of teams for me.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think or to see that the NFC North has 3 teams in the top 10 right now.
Yeah, and the other one that's 3 and 2. Like that's an ugly division, man. This is what I was worried about. Like, and this is like not thinking the Vikings would be up there. I thought the Vikings would struggle a lot. And now that the Vikings are 5-0, they're like the main problem now. I thought Detroit was going to be. So it's going to be an interesting race. This is why I'm keeping my expectations low. It's like, okay, as long as the Bears get 8 wins, I'm a happy camper.
Yeah. And then I also saw a crazy statistic with the Bears. So like I think Caleb Williams, he now has 2 300 pass yard games this season. One from 2 weeks ago and then the most recent week. And I think the stat I saw was that like that ties the amount of like rookie 300-yard passing games of Bears history, like all time.
That's a quarterback situation through the years. What do you want me to say? Like that's like he has ample opportunity to be the best quarterback in Bears history.
Yeah.
Because
so I mean, so that's a really nice positive. And obviously, they have a winning record right now too. So it's not like you're just coping with the losses with that kind of statistic. It's like they're playing. I mean, it's only 5 games, but they have a winning record right now. Caleb Williams is balling out pretty well. Obviously, rookie mistakes happen here and there, but like he's navigating the pocket, I think, pretty well. He's definitely I think all the rookies that have played have improved vastly from that week 1 performance. I think all of them had. Like it was kind of crazy to see how much hate all 3. I mean, I guess Dayton Daniels isn't really getting that much hate, but like between Bo Nix and Caleb Williams, how much hate they were getting week 1, saying like, "Oh, these guys are busts." After literally their first NFL game, and then we're seeing now, like Caleb Williams is this 300-yard game. Bo Nix, I don't think has an interception for like the past like 2 or 3 weeks, I think, which is really awesome for that. And then like in the Broncos game, there's like a 50-yard pass that went through the hands of the receiver. So that was like, I mean, obviously the misconnection sucks, but like the fact that, the Broncos offense is looking to get better each and every week compared to week 1 is pretty nice to see too.
And the one thing with the Bears, just to stand, like I think they've held opponents to 20 points or fewer in like 14 straight games or something like that. Like I saw the stat and it was like crazy. Like I almost didn't believe it. It was just unbelievable. One last topic. The Bengals are 1-4. It's time to hit the panic button on them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Zach Taylor is on the hot seat. I know people have different people have different opinions on that. But like, I'll check out like just the Bengals. I look at a lot of this team subreddits just to kind of see like the overall vibes of like how teams are feeling about their games, and just their own situations. And since last season, honestly, I feel like I've seen a lot of Bengals fans calling for Zach Taylor to be fired. Where it's like, sure, the offense is great, like good. It just like they can't, like, I mean, and they had this even it's like even with the Super Bowl run, it's like they just can't get over the hump enough, and like the issues that they have feel glaring enough that it's like, why have, like, for a team that's been this together this long, how has Zach Taylor not addressed some of like the main weaknesses of the team and allowed them to put themselves in holes like this? Because it's like the mantra with the Bengals nowadays, where it's like, oh yeah, the first part of the season they suck and then they get into rhythm and they start playing good. But I'm like, you always start bad in the beginning of the season. How has that not been addressed, by the coaching staff? And then it's like late in the season you'll lose like a couple like important games or whatnot, and you're like you have these games coming. Like, why do you always struggle against these teams? And obviously coach versus coach battle, but then it's like it is the coach versus coach battle, and you expect him to get better and improve, but we haven't seen that. And it's like he's definitely, I mean, he has like a plenty of elite players on both sides of the ball too that like help, I think, carry him as a coach.
Did you see Jamar's game?
Yeah.
That performance right there against the Ravens is why I have him. That's why I had him as the number one receiver last year. And that's why I had him number 2 this year.
Mm-hmm.
This is the potential of what he puts up, and they still lost that game. Like, the one thing I'll say about Taylor is like that loss that they had against the Ravens is on the holder. That's on the holder. If you get that ball right, you win the game. You pretty much win the game because the Ravens handed you the game by fumbling it away. So it's just about like I probably preach a wait and see approach with him, but the stat you pulled on like the way they start seasons has been true and has been like has not gone away. I think if they go 4-0 or 3-1 in their next 4 games, they're making the playoffs. They're making the playoffs for sure. Because and even then, I'd still think they can hit like a 6 or 7 seed in the AFC. To me, this feels like weird hand there. This feels like the Buffalo Bills of last year. Where it's like slow start and everybody wants McDermott fired or like changes to be made. And suddenly they just roll off like 6 straight wins. I think the Bengals are in a similar boat. And if you look at their schedule, they got the Giants, that's winnable to me. Browns, that's winnable to me.
The Giants have been cooking low-key.
I don't think they can keep up with the Bengals offense though. Like that's a different cat than the Seahawks. Like that was like their first, like Seattle had like a real test. I feel like their defense has been overblown a little bit. The real thing is going to be the Eagles 3 weeks from now. If they can beat them, then I think they're a lock. And then you got the Raiders after that, and they're trying to see like who their quarterback is. After those 4 games, you face the Ravens again. If you're hovering around 500 after those 4 games, I think you're in a pretty good spot because then anything can happen for like the back half of the season. Like I picked them against anybody like in their final 8 games because that's how talented they can be.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think if Zach Taylor wants to stay, they'll need at least a deep run in the playoffs. Because I think, if they make the playoffs, but then they get smoked round 1, I wouldn't be surprised if they happen to let him go. I mean, like, when you make the playoffs, you typically keep the coach. So if they want to keep him, sure, whatever. But, like, I feel like that would be an instance where they'd consider firing. If they miss the playoffs, I think they'd consider firing. Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. And I think the difference with the Bills situation is, like, the fact that for the past, like, year or 2, Bengals fans have been calling for Zach Taylor to get fired, whereas, like, it really was just a last season thing where Bills fans were angry at their coaching. But, yeah, it'll be I mean, and also I think it's smart just to hold for now, like you said, because I'm just thinking like, who are they going to elevate, to the head coach position from within their team? I mean, like, sure, there's guys. I mean, every team has guys that they can do that with, but um, it'd be better just to see what the head coach landscape looks at the start of the offseason, and like kind of starting over from that point rather than a mid-season firing.
I agree. Okay, last stop here. Do have to head out in a couple minutes for practice. Upset alert. I'll give you some time to look at the schedule while I'm going through mine. There's 2 new quarterbacks starting. There's May too, so 3. We got O'Connell, you got Spencer Rattler, and then you got Drake May. For me, I'm gonna go New Orleans over Tampa. And the reason why is because I think Tampa Bay, despite their overtime loss to the Panthers, which was a stunner. Because had Bucky ever not fumbled, they would have won that game. I think there should be expectations of growing pains when Spencer Rattler starts. Derek Carr is out with injuries. They have to figure out their turnover situation and interior protection against Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay is a monster to deal with on their own. But if Rattler is one of them guys and has the talent and you've seen the growth throughout college, I could easily put this as an upset, especially with that home crowd in New Orleans. Like, I think all the pieces are there if he puts it together.
Yeah. For me, weird enough, I could see the Jets upsetting the Bills here. Like, obviously, I don't think the Jets are in a great situation. It's an upset, but I'm calling it an upset for a reason. I feel like division games are always kind of weird. And so if the Jets are going to get a kickstart for anything, this might be the point. You fire the head coach. Maybe there's like a morale boost of some sort. Maybe the players really like the new interim head coach a lot more. They play harder. They're more, I guess, united as a team. That could be a potential upset that I see happening.
Okay. Love to see it. All right, guys. That wraps it up for a quick episode here covering week 5 content in the first 5 weeks. Thank you guys for watching. You can follow us on our Instagram at Amon.a.mission. Follow us on our YouTube channel, Amon Mission, 3 words there. Follow that arrow mark. Let us know. We're riding high as Broncos and Bears fans, respectively. So I'm really, really happy about the progress here. I hope you guys are with your teams. Till then, we'll see you guys later.
Peace.
Hey, there we go.
Yay.